MMB Live. I'm Christy Taylor, and this is powered by Memphis Music Bank and On Location Memphis, Inc. And on tonight, we're going to be talking to one of our Memphis Music Bank publishers, Elijah Pugh. Welcome to MMB Live.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, I love doing this, having a chance to talk to you creative souls that you are that are in the Memphis Music Bank. And I have to tell you that there's one particular song that you have in the bank that I love, which is The Lies You Tell. Now, of course, we're going to get a chance to talk about all your amazing music, but I love to find out more about our publishers, who you are, your musical journey. So let's just get to it.
Okay, well, so I'm actually by schooling a chemical engineer, and I've been working in engineering for probably about the last 8 years. And I'm from Montgomery, Alabama, and I moved to Detroit first and then to Charleston in the past 8 years. And then in Charleston, a year and a half ago is when I decided to get into music production.
Wow, that's amazing.
So,
a year and a half, wow.
Yes. So, I mean, I always loved music, and I love just all types of music when it comes to electronic music, rock, hip hop, R&B, trap, alternative, experimental, anything. If it's got some kind of emotion behind it, then I'm probably gonna listen to it. Yeah, I think I got to a point where I wanted to start making what I wanted to listen to. And so I just decided to start making music. And I mean, if you know me, I mean, everyone who knows me knows that if I do anything, I'm not going to do anything, you know, half-hearted. It's going to be 0 or 100. And most of the time it's probably borderline obsessive, but it gets the job done. I moved to Memphis because my wife actually got a job here in Memphis.
Okay.
And I was actually a little reluctant to move here because I loved the job I had out in Charleston. But ever since I moved here to Memphis, I've really been able to further develop my music, and just the community here has been so encouraging when it comes to just developing more as a musician. So I definitely am glad I did make that transition here to Memphis. So it's kind of my background.
I must say that it is quite amazing. Well, first of all, welcome to Memphis. And you and your wife have been here, what, a year and a half or?
So she's been here. She moved here back in November of 2018. And then I moved here in September of 2019.
Okay, so you are fresh to
Yes.
the market. So I will again say welcome to Memphis officially. And
Thank you.
Here is amazing. So I'm a native, well, I was Washington, D.C. born, but I was raised from a little girl north of Memphis in the Tipton County, Millington area. But I've been in and around Memphis long enough to call it, you know, this is home, and they claim me.
Yeah, well, I was actually born in D.C. also, but I was there for like 2 years.
Yeah, I was 7. Yeah, my first life was in D.C. So I remember some things, but most of my memories are definitely here in the West Tennessee area. I lived other places, Oklahoma, Michigan, you know, California, but Memphis is home. Memphis is home.
Okay.
This is where my mama lives, so this is home.
Okay.
Also, when it comes to music in Memphis, I know that we speak to, as Memphians, the heritage of music, not just in the city, but in the region that colors everything that we do, the souls, the blues, the gospel, the jazz, I mean, the hip hop, the trap. When it comes to musical influences for you, where did you get who and where were you influenced by music?
I mean, music has just kind of been, I've kind of just submerged myself in music, you know, most of my life. My grandfather was a big organist, so he was always playing the organ. And then my aunt actually used to be a songwriter for Motown.
Okay.
But Christy?
Not a, yeah, we're a little frozen, but I can still hear you. But I can tell
Okay.
you that to say that your grandfather was an organist and you had an aunt who wrote for Motown, then truly music is in your blood.
Yeah, yeah. And I've actually realized that, and that was on my mom's side, and I was just told that on my dad's side there were a lot of musicians also. So it's been indirectly in my blood without me knowing it. So I'm just
laying
tapping
dormant,
into
just laying dormant like a superhero gene.
exactly. So I mean, as far as influences, I mean, it's just whatever I listen. I just like to just absorb everything, and I wouldn't say there's anything in particular that influences me. I'd say more people's stories influence me more. For example, Quincy Jones.
Yeah.
Quincy Jones and his story. What are you saying?
I said, yeah. Tell me about that.
So I'd say like Quincy Jones, and I watched his documentary, and how he was able to, and all the different things he was able to accomplish. And so, I mean, when I watched that documentary, that's what kind of lit the fire underneath me to like really pursue my music, and not to just pursue working with artists and things like that, but also to get more into like the scoring and really the orchestral side of it, because I just loved how he would arrange all the strings and horns and things. So I was like, oh, well, we don't have that much anymore, so let me try to do that. So that's kind of been like my main focus, is like mixing those orchestral elements with the modern sounds, like with the trap drums or the R&B drums, and the different synth sounds. So which you heard in The Lies You Tell.
Yes, I was just sitting there. I said, that's, as you were talking, I'm like, that's why I love that song.
Yeah.
That's why I love that song, because I like all of those elements. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that song resonated to me because of that blend. That blend. Yes. Oh.
Well, strings are I feel like are such an emotional instrument, and they're underused now. No one uses them. I mean, I know there are a lot of synth sounds that can give you some emotion, but there's nothing like a violin or a cello or viola. I mean, those things, it just connects with you.
Yes, on a deep level. I mean, cello particularly. Okay, without really getting into I'm a singer and a songwriter. Music was my first love. By the time I hit, my college years, I went to school to be, Oral Roberts University to be exact, to be a music major. But while at ORU, I ended up in radio. My path began the radio path. So that became my career, but I've always been involved in music. So even as early as when it came to band in high school, I used to love the layered sounds, Broadway musical, the orchestrations, and, I played clarinet. So I'm always listening for the other things, beyond just the normal. So when you were listing even your musical palette, I was like, oh yeah, I hear that. So when you talked about the blend, and then that one song that I really love, I can.
Oh yeah, and that's it. You will never catch any of my music without some type of string in it. I mean, but I mean, if you think about it, like even the songs like "Back That Thing Up," the main melody is a string. I mean, and the thong song. The main melody in that is it's a violin.
It carries the melody very well. When you speak about, even though you don't list particular people as your musical experience or your influences, one particular person who was masterful, well, actually in the 70s and 80s, there were quite a few, but Barry White comes to mind. Barry White used the orchestra in such a beautiful way, and blending it in with, urban style. I mean, Curtis Mayfield was also masterful at it. let alone if you listen to a lot of Luther Vandross early music.
Oh yeah. I'd say the only thing, I think what stops people from using them as much is because it does take more time to understand the voicings of the different instruments, and really, because I mean, even me, I'm still learning how, I mean, you can, and the thing about art is you can do it any way you want, but there are certain things that they say you're supposed to, like your first violin, second violins, and the things they have to play. So it does take a little bit more time to really understand how those instruments play, and then even like the dynamics of the instruments, you know, how the expression increases, you know, towards the end of the note, and just the volume of the instrument, because it's not like one sound, it's a fluctuating sound. When someone's playing a violin, it's not just a straight sound, you know, there's a lot of emotion in the way that that person is playing. So it does take more time to truly understand how to arrange the strings and orchestral elements. But I think it's a fun journey. I try not to think about it too much and just create what just comes to mind and just listen to a lot. So
Now, are you using, okay, what software are you using? What type of world do you, what world do you create in? I should say it that way.
So I am a Fruity Loops producer. And but I think the most important, most important tool is my sounds. So I use Spitfire Audio, and I have Albion One, which is their actual film scoring library.
Oh, wow.
So it's not necessarily for like the things I use it for. I'm sure it's not what it's necessarily designed for, but I love how realistic the instruments sound.
Mm-hmm.
So I use that, and then I use East West. I have their composer cloud. So they have a plethora of sounds, and I'm always experimenting with different orchestral sounds, worldly sounds.
I was
like
saying, you're like, I have 100-member orchestra in front of me, and I'm the conductor.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're going big. You're going Marvel. You're going Batman. You're going, yes.
Exactly.
Yes, I love it.
And sometimes I get carried away. You know, sometimes I put too much in there, and especially like when it comes to like if I'm writing something for an artist, I get so caught up in the actual instruments telling the story that I forget that, wait, there's a person that has to come in here and actually talk or sing.
Right. Oh yeah, them. Yeah, them. Yeah.
So I mean, that's definitely, but that's why I prefer to produce more for licensing and for instrumentals, so that I can, really put everything in it that I want.
Right. So you are honestly, truly a composer. As part of your repertoire, you can create music for artists, but yeah, you're definitely in the other slot. Yeah, you're in that.
Thank you.
Now tell me this. Now, when did you start learning how to play keys and things of that nature? What's your favorite instrument that you play?
So musically, when I was in elementary school, I was actually I have a mentor, and I was just telling him about it, but I took piano lessons back when I was in elementary school for like a year, or like 6 months actually. Mm-hmm. And what stopped me was because I had a recital, and my mom recorded the recital and then showed it to my class at school. And I was so embarrassed that I never wanted to play the piano again.
Oh, wow. Why?
So as far as lessons, that was probably the most I ever had in regards to lessons. I was always pretty good at playing by ear and just hearing tones and hearing sounds and just playing them back. So as far as like an actual learning of the keys, it's just all self-taught. Mm-hmm. So it's just, now I will say I kind of hide it fairly well in my music. I'm not very good at playing with two hands, but what I know how to put pieces together. So like I can play the one piece and then record it and then play the other piece and then have it sound cohesive in the music itself. So that's kind of like my hidden secret that I don't really tell anybody.
Well, thank you very much for it. Was a Chrissy Taylor exclusive here on MMB Live. Wow, that's amazing. So when it comes to, okay, so the keys is your instrument. Any other instrument that you play?
I mean, I played the trumpet in junior high school, but I doubt I could probably carry much of a tune on that anymore. So beyond that, no, there's no other instruments. It's just me and my keyboard.
So I do know that we have some amazing music that we can feature that you would like to share. So feel free.
Yeah, this is one track. It's not like a lot of the tracks I work on, like I wanted to play, but it's too much for my microphone. It's like, you know, these really big orchestrations, you know, the big epic sounds, which I will be adding soon to the MMB library. Just have to get my stuff in order. So this track I made is more of like a laid back track that I don't know. So, you know, a lot of the music I make, I try, and now it's not sad. I'm not going to say it as a sad thing, but unfortunately, due to the whole coronavirus, I did lose my job. And, you know, I'm taking that as an opportunity to really focus more on my music and devote more time to it. So now that I have more time, I'm really I try to put out a track a day now. So that's like my main thing. So this is one of the tracks I made a couple days ago where it's just like a very vibey track, and I just go with the flow when I make my music. So this is.
Nice hook.
I'm gonna have my strings come in a little later. They're coming soon. I mean, it goes because like, and I mean, I don't want to take up all the time with my music, but I'll say that with my music, you will not hear the same thing twice very often. So I like to create a journey when you listen to my music, which you probably heard with The Lies You Tell, where it's like, you know.
I'm hoping that you hear me pleading for that song and you'll pull it up. So
okay, let me see. Because I have literally hundreds of songs, so
that's amazing. That's amazing. So who do you listen to now, like modern artists? Because you have such a wide palette. Who intrigues you now musically?
So right now, on my Spotify playlist, I listen to more orchestral scoring. So I listen to a lot of Ramin Djawadi. And so he's the composer for Game of Thrones and Westworld. So I love his music, and I listen to him, and I listen to one of the guys who really got me into mixing modern sounds with orchestral sounds was Ludwig Göransson. And he's the producer for Childish Gambino. and
Okay.
he's also the composer
Yes.
for The Mandalorian
Yes.
and for Black Panther.
Yes, exactly. He's masterful. Oh my
He's really good. His one of the favorites, he did the was it Warmonger uh with the what was the bad character in Black Panther? Killmonger. Killmonger.
Killmonger. Yes,
Yeah,
Michael.
his theme song. I love that theme song.
Wow, I have
He
to just.
also did Creed, which is also a really good scoring soundtrack.
So
And so
basically, he's in the circle with Ryan and Michael B. Jordan. Understood.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I
Ryan,
love his music. So those two are probably the most that I probably listen to them the most. So
okay, so
those
hopefully
are the
by now.
heaviest influence I have.
Well, I love that, and I'm gonna have to.
I have the Lies You Tell pulled up too, by the way.
Okay, okay, I'm ready.
I'll play it.
Okay, I'm a sucker for piano. I'm a sucker for. I'm telling you now before we get started. Part of the reason I love this song is the piano. You gave it such a clean, classic piano sound. So I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, I'll play it.
The Lies.
Let me know when you want me to stop. When you want me to stop it, I'll play it.
Yes. Okay, what's in?
I gotta get.
The reason, okay, I know they're gonna have to go to the Memphis Music Bank to hear it themselves. But what I'm loving about it, and now as I'm listening to it with you, knowing your influences, what it is that you created a movement, like in music and Beethoven sonatas and stuff like that. Each time you in your measures, you're introducing a different mood, and then you layered, and it's like the piano by itself was beautiful, and then you layered with something else. Each one is a movement, and then when you start getting into more urban, I was like, okay, that, and it's like within the first 60 seconds of the song, it's like,
oh yeah,
is
so
yeah.
So I guess a part of my creative process is that I when I listen to music, I really break down the patterns, because music is just patterns. I mean, not to minimalize it, but it's all patterns.
It is. It's pattern is science. It really is. It's like
exactly. And I don't know if it's just my engineering brain or just the way I think, but it's like I've noticed that, especially like the orchestral pieces, every 4 bars they add a new element to the track. But even though they add something extra to the 4 bars, there's always something consistently playing throughout the entire song. And so, just talking to my mentor, who's really into like the mental side of music, he was explaining to me that, are you still there?
Yes,
Okay. So he was explaining to me that what happens is when you keep that one thing in the back playing, it keeps the listener familiar. Yes. And then so you add things on top, and even though they don't hear that sound anymore because it's kind of like falling in the background, it still keeps the listener grounded. So like when I know I'm probably getting
No, this is good. This is good. I love this. I love this.
But so like when I create, I always make sure that there's always a sound that I have from the very beginning that'll play throughout the track to keep the listener grounded. And then I'll just build around that, because honestly, certain sounds, if you start adding other sounds to it, it makes that sound different, even though it's the same sound. So like, that's like one of the things, like now it's more, I don't have to think about it as much since I do it so often now. But that's kind of like what I was originally consciously doing, was that every 4 bars, add something. And then in the transitions, like especially like going into like a verse and a hook, start taking things away to kind of get the listener wanting something back, and then bring it all back maybe like a bar later, and then continuously do that. And so like usually if you listen to my music in the first verse, I try to keep it fairly simple. And then the second verse, I try to build, so I like try to really, it's almost like you're like just traveling in the beginning, and you're like going up a hill, and then you pause, you know, in the hook that I put right in between. And then in the second one, you're like, you see the top of the hill, but you haven't got there yet. And so then by the end of the second verse, you're at the top of the hill. And then the last hook I normally make big and like add everything to. So it's like you're celebrating that you finally got to the end. And then right after that last hook, I bring you back down, because now you're cruising down the hill and everything's good. And then you get right back to that original, whatever original tone I had in the very beginning of the song. So that's kind of my whole creative process in a nutshell.
I love it. It truly is storytelling. You are doing act, second act, third act. You're giving the multiplication. You're giving the sum total of this plus this equals this. This times this equals this. It is totally the hero's journey in a film. You know, I'm also a produced screenwriter. So when you were saying, I said, oh yeah, cinematically speaking, your music will go perfectly, because you understand how to build a story and let it come to its own resolution at the end.
I would say the one thing though I'm working on though is a lot of the times the music I create, it's just more like, it's not, I guess it's not a conscious effort. So like, it's more of like, I'll start playing some stuff on the piano, and then I'll say, oh, I like that. And then I'll just keep building it from there. But I want to get to a point where like I can really say, okay, I want to convey this emotion specifically, and then just make it. You know, now it's like, you know, I'll build, and then it's just what comes out. Right. So I want to be more intentional with my music now. So I think that's like the next phase in my music, is really being intentional with the emotions I want to convey in the music. So
I'm speechless. I need to be thinking words, but I'm thinking that how old were you? About 8 or 9 years old when you took piano lessons? To junior high playing trumpet, to a whole nother path, to come back to here and actually get into the science of music. I'm just thinking your musical journey, and to be a year and a half into what you call your full end commitment to it. Yeah, you are a beast.
Oh, thank you. I probably spend at least, even when I was working, probably about 5 to 6 hours a day on music. So I mean, I was really putting time in. It's not like I was only doing this on the weekend. So I mean, I've always put tons of hours into creating, and just forcing myself to create even when I don't want to. But I mean, most of the time it's just, I love, even though it's so daunting to see that empty page with nothing on it, but you know, I'm always, you know, really yearning for that finished product, so I can just sit back and listen. And I hope it's not narcissistic, but you know, every time I get in my car, I'm just listening to the music I've created, and it just puts me at peace, because it's like, you know, you created that. That was nothing before, you know, you decided to do that. So I mean, I love the whole process of creating.
I would never say looking at what you create as narcissistic. As a creative person, we have to, you know, this, if anything, is divine. I would say far from narcissistic to more divine, that at the end of your creation, you can look back and say, like God did at the beginning, that was good. That was really good. You know, that's, to me, when you know you've done your best.
Mm-hmm.
When
Yeah,
you can
that's true.
say it's completed, like that feels completely, you know, gifted to the world, and now I can share it.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
true artistry. That is true artistry, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, I mean, my ultimate dream though with this music overall is that now, so I've gone through other obsessions before. Like I I snowboarded one year, and I probably did the same thing where I put hours and hours into snowboarding. And by the end of the season, I was able to do double black diamonds in Colorado, which was amazing. I mean, I just put that time in to just get it done. But normally my obsessions only last about 6 months, and then I quit. But you know, music, honestly, if it wasn't for my mentor, I probably would have quit music in about 6 months, because I just get in my head where I'm like, oh, well, my music's not good enough. I don't like it. I'm not moving fast enough. But now that I've kind of pushed through that, you know, want to quit phase, um, I would really like to do this full time, you know, and not have to. And, you know, even though I lost my job, I see that as an opportunity to really focus to see how I can do that full time. So that's my ultimate dream, is to be able to actually make a living off of creating. Uh, so I'm
Well, you
hoping that
definitely
with
can.
the Memphis Music Bank, I could do that.
Yes. And speaking of the Memphis Music Bank, how did you get connected to that? I know you say you love the Memphis music community. How did you end up linking up with the Memphis Music Bank?
So, I mean, as you can tell, I like to talk, and I like to talk to everybody. So actually, when I moved, so when my wife moved here, I would come back, I would come and visit. And when I came to visit, I just looked up random places with music, and I ran into the Memphis Slim House.
Okay.
And so I went there, and, you know, I was just talking it up with everybody. And then I was starting, all the different, any activity they had while I was there, I went to. And I think I came to one of the scoring competitions. And that's when I found out about the Memphis Music Bank. And, you know, it was real. I think it was the second time Kirk and Rowdy were competing against each other.
Yes.
And so I was so amazed, and I was just like, oh man, I really want to be a part of this. And it was actually after because I'm a part of another library. And, you know, when I found out about this library, I was like, okay, this is like a library that I really want to, you know, join and be a part of. So the only downfall I have overall is just that the paperwork side. I mean, if I could just pay somebody else to do that and I can just create, I would do that.
You know, but you can speak to that, because a lot of people who might be interested in, because as you spoke to it, you know, there are a lot of music libraries out there for independent artists, you know, to put their music for consideration for a plethora of things. One thing you can speak to is that the Memphis Music Bank does require you to do that paperwork.
Which is good.
Yeah. Can you talk about that process for those who might be watching?
So, I mean, in regards to, for the most part, they require you to have your music registered and copywritten, which I think is where a lot of musicians probably lack and probably end up losing a lot when it comes to that. You know, I was even talking to someone about, you know, just the little small things about getting royalties. You can't even get your royalties if you don't register your music correctly. It may be popping somewhere on YouTube or something, but if it's not registered, you won't see much. You won't see the full amount of money you can actually make off that music. So I really like the fact that the Memphis Music Bank kind of forces you to do that. Of course, considering I make so much music, it gets kind of overwhelming. But, you know, now that I have the time, I plan to do that a lot more, so I can submit a lot more music. And so you can enjoy a lot more of my music.
Yes. Well, indeed. You know, I know we're getting to the end of our session here, but I wanted to see I see you're sitting in front of the piano.
Yes.
Maybe you can give me a little bit on the piano. I know it's.
I told you I don't have much.
Well, just tinkle those ivory keys for me just for a second.
I mean,
Improv, jazz.
I'm not a piano player. I'm a producer.
Okay, well, just give me something.
Okay,
Only because I see the keys. Only because I see.
I can play "Let It Be"
Okay.
by the Beatles.
Can you? Okay.
That's all I get.
I love it. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be.
That's all I get.
Thank you.
Because I've always been good at memorizing what people play, so I can do that. But as far as improvising, I haven't got there.
Well, Elijah, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing your music. And
No problem.
yes, and again, welcome to Memphis, and thank you for being a part of the Memphis Music Bank.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being so welcoming.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, for those who would love to keep up with you, is there a website, social media that they can follow?
Yeah, so actually, if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, so Instagram, I am Eli P _ PROD. So that's Eli P Production. So Eli P _ PROD. And then on Facebook, I have Eli P Music Productions. And if you follow me on either one, or on YouTube at Eli P. And if you follow me in any of those, I am posting a new track every day. So if you want to go through my musical journey and hear anything from an orchestral piece to trap to R&B to anything, you know, just tune in, and I'll be putting it out. I am determined to I have a backlog of music that I just have not put out, and I don't think art's not worth it unless you share it with the world. So I'm trying to share it all.
Well, thank you very much. And of course, you can also check him out at the Memphis Music Bank. You can go to onlocationmemphis.org or straight to memphismusicbank.org as well.
And I will have a lot more music in the Memphis Music Bank very soon. So be looking out for it. Hope I don't take over the bank with all my music.
Oh, take it over. And filmmakers and music supervisors, be sure to check out Eli, Pugh, and I see that you do have your logo in the back. Yeah, there it is. Look for that on the Memphis Music Bank.